All right, today we're cracking open one of the biggest stories in science, how we finally figured out a way to study the human mind. Let's get right into it.
For the longest time, this was the question. It completely stumped scientists. Your thoughts, your memories, it all felt locked away in this mysterious black box. So how in the world do we go from basically ignoring the mind to being able to map it? Well, that's the story we're going to unpack today.
So, here's how we're going to do it. We're going to break it all down into three massive ideas that completely changed the game. First up, the revolution that let us peek inside that black box. Then, we'll look at the new toolkit everyone started using. And finally, how a bunch of different fields teamed up to build what we now call cognitive science. And of course, we'll wrap it all up with the key takeaways.
Okay, first up, the revolution itself. This was a really radical idea at the time. Let's stop pretending the mind doesn't exist and actually try to study it.
And this right here really shows you the before and after. See, for a huge chunk of the 20th century, the main game in town was behaviorism. The idea was simple: we can only study what we can see. Stimulus, response. The mind, totally off limits, a black box. But then cognitive science came along and said, no, the mind isn't a black box. It's an active information processor, and we can and should figure out how it works.
And this huge shift has a name: the cognitive revolution. It was a complete paradigm shift. All of a sudden, things like memory, attention, and language weren't these unknowable mysteries anymore. They were processes, things we could actually investigate scientifically. So, you might be asking, what kicked this whole revolution off? Well, the thing is, behaviorism just hit a wall. It couldn't explain some of the most incredible things we do. And the classic example, the real nail in the coffin, was language. How could a kid learn a whole language just from copying and being rewarded, especially when the stuff they hear from adults is often a total mess grammatically? It just didn't make sense.
And this is such a perfect example of that. Just think about a toddler saying something like, "I good outside." Now, they've probably never heard an adult say good, right? So they're not just mimicking. What they're doing is so much smarter. They've figured out an internal rule. Hey, to make something past tense, you add ed. They just haven't learned the exceptions yet. That's not mimicry. That's an algorithm running in their head. And behaviorism had absolutely no answer for that.
Okay, so the revolution happens, everyone agrees we can study the mind. But that creates a brand new problem. How? We needed a new set of tools, a new metaphor. And they found one in the biggest, most game-changing technology of the time, the computer.
This is what led to our second big idea, the computational theory of mind. Now, it's super important to get this right. The idea wasn't that our brains are literally made of silicon chips, right? It's not a laptop in your skull. The huge insight was that what the mind does, thinking, remembering, solving problems, could be understood as a type of computation. It's like our thoughts are the software and the brain is the hardware. For the first time, this gave scientists a real language to talk about mental processes.
And this whole new way of thinking just exploded onto the scene in 1956. Seriously, it was a pivotal year. You had the conference that officially launched the field of artificial intelligence. You had George Miller publishing his famous paper showing we can actually measure the limits of our memory. And Noam Chomsky was there, continuing to push his ideas about language. It was like a perfect storm of genius that cemented this new science of the mind. So, one of the key mechanisms that came out of this computer metaphor was something called the TOTE model. It sounds fancy, but it's actually a really simple feedback loop. It just stands for test, operate, test, exit. Think about it. You test where you are, you operate to get closer to your goal, you test again to see how you did, and you exit once the job is done. It's a really simple but powerful way to break down almost any goal-directed behavior. And you actually see this kind of logic literally everywhere today. Think about your Netflix or Spotify recommendations. What's the algorithm doing? It tests your viewing history. It operates by suggesting a new movie, and then it tests again based on whether you watch it or not. It's just a gigantic, super sophisticated version of the TOTE model running 24/7.
All right, so we've pried open the black box. We've got this new Mind is Computer toolkit. That brings us to our third and final big idea. This whole project was way too big for any one field. It had to be a massive team effort. And that right there is what cognitive science is. It isn't just Psychology 2.0. It's this incredible interdisciplinary hub where people from psychology, computer science, neuroscience, linguistics, they all come to the same table to try and solve the same puzzle. How do minds work? And this chart basically shows you the starting lineup for the cognitive science team. You've got psychology, looking at behavior, neuroscience, digging into the brain's hardware, AI, trying to actually build intelligent things, linguistics, decoding the structure of language, philosophy, asking those huge questions about what consciousness even is, and anthropology, looking at how thinking varies across cultures. You need all of them to get the full picture.
But okay, that raises a pretty big question. How do you get a philosopher, a computer programmer, and a neuroscientist to even understand each other, let alone work together? Well, the key mechanism here was a brilliant framework from a guy named David Marr. It's called the levels of analysis.
Marr's idea was that you can understand any information processing system, including the mind, on 3 different levels. Let's make it simple with a cash register. The top level is the computational level. It asks, what's the point? What's the problem it's solving? For a cash register, the goal is to calculate a total based on the rules of math. Simple. The next level down is the algorithmic level. It asks, what are the steps? How does it do it? Well, it follows a procedure. Add an item's price to the running total, then repeat. Finally, you have the implementational level. What's it actually made of? Well, silicon chips, wires, a plastic case. See, you need all 3 explanations to really understand the cash register. And this isn't just some abstract academic idea. This framework is used to build the tech you use every single day. Take your social media feed. The developers started at the top, at the computational level. What's our goal? To maximize user engagement. Then they moved to the algorithmic level. What's our process? Okay, let's rank posts based on likes, comments, and what this user has looked at before. And finally, the implementational level. How do we actually make this run? On massive servers using specific programming languages. It's Marr's levels in action, literally shaping what you see on your phone right now.
Oof. Okay, we have covered a ton of ground. So let's step back and boil this all down to the most important things you need to remember.
All right, here are your 4 essential takeaways. Number 1, the cognitive revolution was the big shift away from just watching behavior to actually studying what's going on inside our heads. Number 2, that mind as computer metaphor was the game changer. It gave us a powerful new way to model how we think. Number 3, cognitive science is a team sport. It brings together all these different fields and uses frameworks like Marr's levels so everyone can work together. And finally, number 4, these ideas aren't just for textbooks. They are the engine behind so much of our modern world, from the AI on your phone to the design of a good website.
And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. If the mind really is an information processor, and it's constantly being shaped by the world around it, what's its next big software update going to be? What comes next for the human mind? Something to chew on. Thanks for tuning in.